While you're worried about your phone battery dying, one U.S. prison considers owning this common household item a felony offense. Prison administrators have some pretty wild ideas about what counts as dangerous contraband. While inmates can apparently check out a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf from many prison libraries without batting an eye, they'll confiscate the color purple faster than you can say censorship. Makes sense, right? Well, not really. The reasoning behind book bans often defies logic entirely. Alice Walker's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel gets flagged for containing adult themes, yet somehow a manifesto that literally inspired genocide passes the safety test. Prison officials claim they're protecting inmates from inappropriate content, but their definition of inappropriate seems to have been decided by throwing darts at a wall while blindfolded. Then there's the soap sculpture situation that'll make your head spin. Prisoners who carve chess pieces out of soap bars face serious consequences for creating weapons. Yes, you heard that correctly. A pawn made from ivory soap apparently poses the same security threat as a shank. Guards treat these tiny artistic creations like they're discovering rocket launchers hidden in cell blocks. The irony? These same facilities often promote art therapy programs while simultaneously punishing creativity. But wait, it gets stranger. When prisoners get released or transferred, they can't give away their personal belongings to fellow inmates. That worn-out paperback novel you've read 50 times? Can't pass it along to your cellmate? Those family photos that kept you sane for 3 years? They go straight into the trash if you can't carry them out yourself. The system treats basic human generosity like it's some kind of criminal conspiracy. Electronic devices face their own bizarre restrictions that would make tech support weep. Change your radio's antenna position? Contraband violation. Adjust the volume knob on your approved television? Rule infraction. Prison officials treat any modification, no matter how minor, as evidence of escape planning or weapon manufacturing. They've apparently never heard of normal wear and tear. Speaking of wear and tear, even the tiniest changes to approved items can trigger confiscation. A scratch on your plastic cup? Gone. Your notebook cover got discolored from normal use? Contraband. Guards inspect personal belongings with the intensity of diamond appraisers, searching for any deviation from factory fresh condition. Heaven forbid your toothbrush shows signs of actually being used for brushing teeth. The strangest part about these rules isn't just how ridiculous they sound, it's how seriously they're enforced. Prison staff dedicate enormous amounts of time and resources to policing soap carvings and worn-out paperbacks. They've created entire bureaucracies around determining whether a book about overcoming adversity poses more danger than historical documents about racial superiority. These contraband policies reveal something troubling about how the system views rehabilitation versus punishment. When creativity gets criminalized and generosity becomes grounds for discipline, you start wondering what the real purpose of incarceration actually is. And the book bans? They're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how the justice system handles what should be straightforward decisions. You'd think judges have the power to decide what punishment fits the crime? Well, think again. Thanks to mandatory minimum laws, judges often sit behind their benches knowing they're about to hand down sentences that make absolutely no sense. Here's where things get really twisted. A first-time offender selling prescription painkillers to help pay rent can face 25 years in federal prison. 25 years? That's longer than many murderers serve. The judge might look at this person, maybe a college student or someone struggling financially, and know deep down that a quarter century behind bars is insane. But their hands are tied. The law doesn't care about context. It doesn't matter if you were desperate, if it was your first mistake, or if you've already learned your lesson. The gavel comes down, and boom, your life is essentially over. Then there's the conspiracy trap that turns street-level dealers into kingpins on paper. Here's how this works. If you sell drugs as part of any group, even loosely connected people, you can be held responsible for everything that group did. So that guy who sold a few bags on the corner, he gets sentenced as if he masterminded the entire operation. The actual boss might plea bargain his way to less time, while the small fish drowns in decades of imprisonment. Drug addicts face an especially cruel twist of logic. Someone struggling with addiction commits a crime to feed their habit, and instead of getting help, they often receive harsher sentences than people who commit violent crimes. A person who robs someone at gunpoint might serve less time than someone who sold drugs to support their own addiction. Makes perfect sense, right? But wait, it gets worse. Even when someone turns their life around, Mandatory minimums don't care. Let's say someone gets arrested, goes through withdrawal in jail, finds religion, starts helping other inmates, and shows genuine remorse. Under normal circumstances, a judge would consider these factors. They're called mitigating circumstances, and they used to matter in sentencing. Not anymore. The law says tough luck to redemption stories. Whether you're a changed person or still the same mess you were when arrested, you're getting the same crushing sentence. Judges have watched people cry in their courtrooms, knowing these individuals have already learned their lesson, but the law demands they throw away the key anyway. And the weird part is how this creates a backwards justice system where the punishment has nothing to do with the actual harm caused. Someone who destroys a family through violence might walk free in a few years, while someone who sold pills sits in a cell for decades. The severity of your crime matters less than what category it falls into. Even seasoned judges admit the system has gone mad. They've become robots, mechanically dispensing predetermined sentences regardless of what their experience and wisdom tell them. But here's what makes this even more absurd. The system doesn't just stop at unfair sentences. It gets creative with punishment in ways that'll make your head spin. You thought those mandatory minimums were crazy? Well, buckle up, because some people are spending their entire lives behind bars for crimes that wouldn't even make the evening news. Take Gary Ewing from California. His third strike? Shoplifting golf clubs worth $1,200. That's it. No violence, no weapons, just some golf equipment he probably couldn't even use properly. But because he had 2 previous felonies on his record, the judge had no choice but to sentence him to 25 years to life. The weird part is, a person who commits their first armed robbery might get out in less time than Gary will serve for those golf clubs. Then there's the case of a Louisiana man who siphoned $3 worth of gasoline from a truck. $3. That's barely enough gas to drive across town. But thanks to his prior convictions and the state's habitual offender law, he got life without parole. Makes sense, right? Apparently those $3 of gas made him such a danger to society that he can never be released. But why do these laws exist in the first place? The idea behind 3 strikes rules was to keep dangerous repeat offenders off the streets forever. Sounds reasonable until you realize that the third strike doesn't have to be serious at all. A person could commit 2 burglaries in their 20s, turn their life around, get married, have kids, then get caught stealing a slice of pizza when they're broke and hungry. Life sentence. Curtis Wilkerson found this out the hard way in California. His life sentence came from attempting to steal a $2.50 pair of socks from a department store. The socks didn't even make it out of the store, but the attempt was enough. $2.50 equals life in prison. Meanwhile, some people convicted of manslaughter serve less than a decade. And the weird part is how these laws completely ignore context. Jerry Dwayne Williams got life for taking a slice of pepperoni pizza from some kids on the boardwalk in California. The kids weren't hurt. They probably forgot about it the next day. But Jerry will never see freedom again. His previous strikes? Robbery convictions from when he was young and stupid. Let's not forget about the woman in Texas who got 99 years for selling $10 worth of cocaine. Her crime was being addicted and trying to support her habit by dealing small amounts. First-time violent offenders often get out sooner than she ever will. The most twisted cases involve people whose violent third strikes are things like making drunken threats or getting into bar fights. One man in Georgia got life for his third strike, which was threatening a police officer while drunk. No weapon, no actual violence, just alcohol-fueled big talk that landed him a permanent cell. These habitual offender laws were supposed to target career criminals, but they've created a system where stealing soap can be more dangerous than assault. While prisoners inside deal with bizarre restrictions on everything they can own or touch, these laws ensure some will never have to worry about the outside world again. Forget traditional fines and jail time. Some judges have gone completely off script, creating punishments that sound more like pranks than legal consequences. Take Judge Ted Poe from Texas, who became famous for his theatrical approach to justice. He once ordered a teenager who vandalized 13 cars to push a shopping cart through town wearing a sign that read, "I am a thief." The kid had to walk down busy streets while everyone stared and pointed. Embarrassing? Absolutely. Legal? Surprisingly, yes. Then there's the case of a man who skipped out on a $20 cab fare in Ohio. The judge didn't just fine him or give him community service. Instead, he ordered the guy to walk 30 miles, the exact distance the cab had driven him. The man had to trek along highways and through neighborhoods, essentially retracing his unpaid journey on foot. Talk about making the punishment fit the crime. But wait, it gets weirder. A Texas judge offered a domestic violence defendant an unusual choice: marry your girlfriend within 30 days or spend 15 days in jail. The couple had been fighting, and apparently the judge thought a wedding would solve their problems. The man chose marriage, though one has to wonder how romantic that proposal was. Honey, will you marry me? Or I'll go to prison. Creative sentencing doesn't stop at public humiliation and forced marriages. Some judges have banned people from using cell phones entirely as part of their criminal punishment. One woman caught texting while driving had to surrender her phone for months. No calls, no texts, no social media. In today's world, that's practically medieval torture. Writing assignments have become surprisingly popular punishments too. A teenager who spray-painted graffiti was ordered to write a 500-word essay about respect for property. Another judge made a shoplifter handwrite the 10 Commandments 25 times. These aren't school detention assignments, they're actual legal sentences that show up on criminal records. The strangest part? These creative punishments often work better than traditional ones. People remember the embarrassment and think twice before breaking the law again. A person wearing a "stole from Walmart" sign gets a lesson in consequences that sitting in a jail cell might not provide. Some judges have ordered people to stand outside courthouses holding signs about their crimes. Others have made defendants apologize personally to everyone they wronged. One judge even sentenced a noise violator to sit in a room and listen to classical music for hours, figuring if the guy didn't like quiet, he'd learn to appreciate it. The legal system usually follows strict rules and procedures, but these creative sentences push boundaries in unexpected ways. They're designed to teach lessons through embarrassment rather than imprisonment. Whether they're effective or just plain weird depends on who you ask. Creative sentencing might sound amusing from the outside, but there's another side to the justice system that's far less entertaining. Some rules about basic human contact make these unusual punishments look almost gentle by comparison. You think prison visits are like the movies? Think again. The rules around contact and communication in American prisons are so bizarre they'd make a helicopter parent look relaxed. Most facilities ban hugging completely. Not even a quick embrace when you arrive or leave. Some places allow a brief handshake at the start and end of a visit. But that's it. No holding hands across the table. No pat on the shoulder. One prison guard actually measured the distance between a mother and son during their conversation to make sure they stayed exactly 3 feet apart. The son hadn't seen his mom in 2 years. Then there's the mail situation, which gets downright weird. Sure, prisoners can write letters, but every single piece of correspondence gets read by staff first. Love letters, birthday cards, even condolence notes when someone dies. Prison employees sit in offices reading thousands of personal messages daily, crossing out words they don't like with thick black markers. Some facilities reject letters for having too many spelling errors. Others ban certain topics entirely, like discussing other inmates or mentioning specific dates. But wait, it gets stranger. Visiting hours in some jails last exactly 15 minutes per week. 15 minutes. That's barely enough time to catch up on basic family news, let alone maintain any real relationship. Some prisoners get one visit per month that lasts 30 minutes, but only if they haven't broken any rules recently. Miss a bed inspection, no visit this month. Phone calls come with their own set of ridiculous restrictions. Inmates can only call numbers on their approved list, but getting someone added to that list takes weeks of paperwork. Sometimes requests get denied for no clear reason. One prisoner couldn't call his elderly father because the facility claimed the phone number looked suspicious. It was the same landline the family had used for 20 years. The newer trend is even more isolating. Video visitation is replacing face-to-face meetings in hundreds of facilities across the country. Families now sit in their cars in prison parking lots, talking to their loved ones through scratchy computer screens for premium fees. Some places charge $15 for a 20-minute video call. The technology breaks down constantly, cutting conversations short without refunds. Staff monitor these video calls too, recording everything. Privacy doesn't exist. Family members report feeling like they're performing in some twisted reality show rather than visiting someone they care about. Kids struggle to understand why they can't hug daddy through the computer screen. And the weird part is how these rules change without warning. One week hugging might be allowed, the next week it's banned because someone somewhere decided it posed a security risk. Communication policies shift based on which guard is working that day or what mood the warden happens to be in. These contact restrictions create a special kind of psychological torture that goes far beyond the original court sentence. But if you think communication rules are harsh, wait until you discover how prisons control something even more basic than human contact. Prison officials take appearance control to ridiculous extremes. Walk into most facilities, and you'll notice every inmate looks nearly identical. That's not by accident. Haircuts follow military-style rules that would make drill sergeants jealous. One approved style for everyone, no exceptions. A prisoner in Ohio got written up because his hair was a quarter-inch too long on the sides. The punishment? 2 weeks of lost privileges and a forced buzz cut so short he looked like a cue ball. When inmates request different styles for religious reasons, the paperwork alone takes months to process. The color restrictions go way beyond common sense. Orange jumpsuits are standard, but some facilities ban inmates from wearing anything remotely bright or dark during visits. A grandmother bringing her grandson new underwear got turned away because they were navy blue instead of white. Dark colors supposedly help inmates hide contraband or blend into shadows during escapes, because apparently wearing black socks turns you into a ninja. Wedding rings get confiscated at intake, even for people married 30 years. Prison officials claim jewelry poses security risks. Makes sense, right? That thin gold band could clearly be melted down into, well, nothing useful for escaping. But rules are rules. One woman had her engagement ring taken and lost in the system. When she got out 2 years later, officials claimed they had no record of it. Personal grooming becomes a carefully monitored military operation. Nail clippers get distributed once a week for exactly 15 minutes. Miss your slot because you're in the shower or at work detail. Too bad. Wait another week. Some inmates resort to biting their nails or using rough concrete walls to file them down. Razors follow even stricter protocols. Many facilities only allow supervised shaving twice a week. Guards watch every stroke to prevent inmates from hiding blades or cutting themselves. The process takes hours as hundreds of men line up for their turn with one of 5 shared razors. Some facilities use electric razors chained to the wall, creating assembly lines of half-shaved faces waiting their turn. Then there's the tattoo paranoia. Existing tattoos get photographed, cataloged, and analyzed by gang intelligence units. Fresh ink discovered during random inspections triggers immediate investigations. Guards assume new tattoos indicate gang activity, drug deals, or escape plans. Reality check. Most prison tattoos are just bored people making terrible artistic choices with improvised equipment. Body piercings disappear instantly. Ear gauges, nose rings, eyebrow studs, everything comes out. Holes close up over time, erasing years of personal expression. One punk rocker with dozens of piercings said leaving prison felt like losing his identity. His reflection looked like a stranger. Makeup remains completely forbidden for most male inmates, obviously, but even women's facilities restrict cosmetics heavily. No red lipstick because it's too provocative. Dark eyeliner gets banned for looking gang-related. Basic chapstick requires a medical prescription in some places. The strangest part about all these appearance rules? They extend beyond practical security concerns into pure control psychology. When you strip away someone's ability to choose how they look, you're removing a fundamental piece of their humanity. But controlling appearances barely scratches the surface of prison micromanagement. Wait until you hear what they do with something as basic as sharing a candy bar. You'd think food would be pretty straightforward in prison, right? Well, think again. Even the most basic human need, eating, comes wrapped in bizarre rules that make zero sense. Many prisons ban inmates from sharing food with each other. Not just meals from the cafeteria, but even a piece of candy or a bag of chips bought from the commissary. Why? Officials claim it prevents debt between prisoners. But here's the kicker. Guards regularly turn birthday celebrations into contraband raids. That homemade cake your mom spent hours baking? Straight into the trash, no questions asked. The weird part is how these food rules create their own black market. Inmates trade packets of ramen noodles like currency. A single bag of chips becomes worth more than actual money in some facilities. Yet the same system that bans sharing treats will happily sell overpriced junk food through the commissary. Then there's the money situation, which gets even stranger. Most prisons cap how much cash inmates can keep in their accounts. Anything over that limit? Gone. Confiscated by the state, supposedly for safekeeping. Your grandmother sends you $50 for your birthday, but you already have 40 in your account, and the limit is 60. Too bad, that extra $30 vanishes into the prison's general fund. Let's not forget the commissary shopping experience itself. Inmates get 1 day per week to buy necessities, and the selection reads like a convenience store from 1995. Want deodorant? Better hope it's in stock. Need shampoo? Only one brand allowed, take it or leave it. The prices make airport shops look reasonable. A small bag of chips costs $3, while a tube of toothpaste runs $8. But the possession rules venture into complete absurdity. Guards classify almost anything as potential contraband. That smooth pebble from the recreation yard? Contraband. It could be used as a weapon. A pretty shell someone found during outside work detail. Also contraband. It might hide drugs inside. Even drawings made by other inmates can't be kept if they contain inappropriate imagery, which apparently includes anything more artistic than stick figures. The system creates impossible choices. Inmates must constantly decide between basic needs because they can only purchase a limited number of items each week. Buy soap or buy food. Get writing paper or get stamps. These aren't luxury decisions. They're survival calculations that free people never have to make. And the enforcement stays completely random. 1 week, guards ignore your extra candy bar. The next week, they write you up for hoarding food. Same item, same inmate, different consequences depending on who's having a bad day. What makes these food and possession rules particularly maddening is how they strip away the tiny comforts that make prison life bearable. A shared snack between friends becomes a punishable offense. A small keepsake gets labeled dangerous contraband. While inmates navigate these bizarre restrictions on their basic needs, there's something even more extreme waiting around the corner: punishments that go way beyond taking away your candy bar. Solitary confinement for humming too loudly. Life sentences for teenagers. Adding months to your time because you talked back to a guard. Welcome to the world where extreme punishments make you wonder if anyone's paying attention to basic human decency. Here's what blows your mind. Some prisons throw inmates into solitary for the tiniest infractions. Forget violent behavior. We're talking about singing in your cell, refusing to cut your hair, or even reading the wrong book. Once you're in that concrete box, you might stay there for months. 23 hours a day with nothing but four walls and your thoughts. The other hour? That's your recreation time in another concrete box, just slightly bigger. But wait, it gets stranger. Some facilities consider outdoor time a luxury, not a basic need. Prisoners can go weeks getting just 1 hour outside per week, and that's if they're lucky enough to see actual sunlight. Many exercise yards are covered or surrounded by walls so high that natural light barely reaches the ground. Makes sense for people who need fresh air and vitamin D, right? Then there's the collective punishment madness. One inmate acts up, and suddenly the entire cell block goes on lockdown. Hundreds of people lose privileges, visits, and movement because of someone else's mistake. These lockdowns can stretch for weeks, turning daily routines into a nightmare of isolation and boredom. The youth system hits different levels of absurd. Several states still hand out life without parole sentences to minors. We're talking about kids who can't legally vote, drink, or sign contracts, but apparently they're mature enough to never deserve freedom again. These young people enter prison knowing they'll likely die there, regardless of how much they might change or grow. Let's not forget the creative ways prisons add time to sentences. Talk back to an officer? That's disrespecting authority. Extra months added. Refuse a direct order, even something as simple as standing in a different spot? More time. Some inmates rack up additional years just from these minor infractions, turning short sentences into decades behind bars. And the weird part is how arbitrary it all becomes. Guards have enormous power to decide what counts as rule breaking. Your tone of voice sounds wrong? Punishment? You're walking too slowly to chow? Write up. The same action might get ignored one day and land you in solitary the next, depending on which officer's having a bad shift. Prison officials defend these extreme measures as necessary for safety and order, but when you're adding months to someone's sentence for singing or locking up teenagers forever, you have to ask where the line is between punishment and cruelty. The isolation, the arbitrary rules, the disproportionate consequences, they create environments where rehabilitation becomes impossible and human dignity disappears. These aren't just policy decisions written in dusty manuals. They're real consequences affecting real people, often in ways that serve no purpose beyond demonstrating power. The American justice system promised fairness and proportional punishment, but these extreme conditions reveal something far more troubling about what we've actually built.